Hey everybody, Yankee here. I'm sure most of you out there, if you've been paying attention, know that Attorney General Bondi announced a couple of days ago that they have formed what they are calling a Second Amendment Task Force. And that this task force is going to implement Donald Trump's executive order on Second Amendment rights. That they're going to help make sure that what he had in that executive order gets done. Now, a lot of people are probably saying, that sounds very official, sounds very powerful. What are they actually going to do? Well, that's unclear. It's unclear what they even can do. In fact, it's unclear if this is really even much of an organization because the document that formed it, a government agency, is really less than a page long. I mean, it covers most of a page, but it's pretty widely spaced. So there isn't a whole lot in it to tell anybody anything. In fact, it seems a lot like political theater. But is it? Can it do something? Will it do something? Well, first off, before we talk about what it can do or will do, let's talk about what it can't do for people who might have some unrealistic expectations. A lot of people think they're going to step in and say, well, the ATF has to get rid of all these rules. Well, they can't do that. That's not the Attorney General's job. Only Congress can do that. Unfortunately, ATF's been writing their own rules for a long time. Hopefully they'll step in and maybe get rid of the things that aren't actually rules, but the ATF implements. That they could probably have a little authority to do. But as far as changing the rules at the ATF or gun laws, they can't do that. State level, federal level, can't do it. They also can't affect any state laws, even if they violate the Constitution. A lot of people have this mistaken concept that the Attorney General can say, hey, that law is unconstitutional, you have to get rid of it. Cannot do that. Only the courts can do that, and only Congress can pass laws that would override state laws. So the Attorney General doesn't have that power, period, much less some little unofficial task force she creates have that power. That's not going to happen. Like I said, not within the scope of their office. And it really shouldn't be. That should be something that the courts do and Congress does. Unfortunately, we can't count on Congress to do the right thing. And often can't count on the courts to do the right thing, so we're kind of screwed sometimes. But that is not within their power. They're not going to be doing that. There's not going to be any wide-sweeping changes to laws. There's not going to be any wide-sweeping changes even inside the government as far as regulations and rules, etc., because they can't do that. But what can they do? Well, I don't know that they want to do much, but one thing I'm hoping they'll do, because they did mention that a lot of, gun retailers, FFLs, etc., had been harassed by the previous administration, that they're going to stop that. They're going to make sure that isn't happening anymore, that dealers aren't being run out of business because, they signed on the wrong spot or made a date by one day wrong or something like that. They're not going to be nitpicked on every little thing. And I haven't noticed that that's happening a lot, period, lately, but let's hope it doesn't happen at all. So that's one thing I guess that could be done. Now, it would be great if, like I said before, if they could go in and say, hey, all these things that the ATF say, all these interpretations they made, well, they're nowhere in the actual laws, so they all have to go. I think they can do that. I don't know. I don't even know if that's within their power. So I'm not getting my hopes too high, but let's hope they can do something like that. What they can do, since it is the Attorney General's office, what they can do, and this is what I'm hoping happens, is they can start engaging in litigation against states when they think that their laws or their rules violate the Constitution. So maybe some of these laws that are already facing legal challenges, many of which are already at the Supreme Court, will start getting a little more backing from the Department of Justice. Now, is that likely? Not really, because most of them are already pretty far through the system. They're pretty far up there. They've gone a long way. They haven't needed the Department of Justice yet, and they probably won't need the Department of Justice. But it would be nice if they threw the federal government behind some of these lawsuits. That would be a positive thing. Even if it didn't really mean that much, if you're out there and you're a legal scholar or you're a lawyer and you're going to come to me and say, well, that really don't mean that much. All they're going to do is file a brief, or they're going to say they approve, or they believe this way or that way. It really doesn't influence the court any. That's all true. But it would still be nice to know that the federal government is behind doing the right thing when it comes to the Constitution. That would be great. Now, am I holding my breath for that? No, I'm not. I'm not holding my breath. Like I've said, I am not very hopeful that the government will ever do anything positive for us that they're not forced to do, and that we're the only ones that can force them to do it. And since most people don't seem to want to do that most of the time, and especially not now, the people that would normally be leading the charge on pro-gun things are like, well, I don't want anyone to think that I don't love Donald Trump. So they're kind of silent. So I don't think we're going to see a lot of progress in the upcoming years. But like I said, also don't think we're going to see a lot of negative things in the upcoming years, I hope. And I hope the courts will take care of the things that do come up. And like I said, it'd be nice if the Department of Justice threw their weight behind it. And that can happen. As far as the stuff with the ATF, I don't really know what it can do. As far as power-wise, this is kind of a toothless organization. It didn't give the DOJ any more power than they already have that they're either using or not using. It doesn't spur Congress to do anything. Like I said, I think right now the president's time would be better spent trying to urge Congress to do something regarding the Constitution. I wish he'd be doing that. I haven't seen that yet. Still got my fingers crossed that we will. We still got till the midterms. I think we've got up until the midterms to get things done. Now, it's not just a couple of weeks in now, like a lot of people said last time I made a video. Now it's 3 months in. So we do need to see something happening soon. But like I said, we still got till the midterms. So hopefully something will be done. But as far as this, I just don't see that this is a big thing. I do like the idea of what it represents, that the Justice Department is going to be solely behind doing the right thing and the constitutional thing when it comes to the Second Amendment, when it comes to the ATF, etc. When they bring stuff in front of the Justice Department saying, hey, should we go after this dealer for this, or should we go after this person for that? I'm hoping they're going to say no, because what they did doesn't violate Second Amendment. The rule that makes them a bad guy is in violation of the Constitution, not their actions. That is a positive sign. So at least this is that. It's a sign from the government that, yeah, we're not really going to get involved in prosecuting people on nitpicky things regarding guns, even though the last administration said we're going to start prosecuting on every little nitpicky thing we can find. But is it a long-term change? No, because, whoever's president next can change it back, change it to something better or worse or whatever. That'll be on them. So it's not really a long-term thing. This Second Amendment task force, they form task force all the time, like, a task force to combat poverty or combat inequality or combat this or combat that. And do they ever really win any wars against the thing they're combating? Well, no, because you usually can't actually have war on the things that they're combating. You can't have a battle against a concept or a situation. So it's mostly theater, but some good things can come from it. And symbolically, it's good. It's great to see that they're not going to be involved in that stuff. But until I start seeing some real results, I'm not going to do any somersaults for this administration as far as gun rights are concerned. So I'm going to need to see a lot more than this. And I'm sure some people will pretend like this is something great, because they're desperately clinging to the idea that this administration is going to be the savior of the Second Amendment. When I think that duty rests in the hands of the people, we are going to be the saviors of the Second Amendment, and we are going to have to make change. I think that's what it's eventually going to be. The people are going to have to force change. And as long as people are saying, well, as long as my side's in power, I'm not going to fight back, or as long as my side's in power, I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to be perceived as a traitor, well, then we're not going to make any change. So right now, we only can hope that Donald Trump decides to get off his butt when it comes to the Second Amendment and put forward some good legislation through some of his representatives in Congress and get it passed. And I don't want to hear, they'll never get it past the Democrats. If people say that, we'll never get anything done. It's that kind of thing that causes us to never win anything. That why even bother attitude, which I'm so sick of. They also said he wouldn't get any of his appointees through Congress. Look at all of his appointees sitting where they are. When people said, nope, not a possibility. But it happened. So it shows you they can get things done when they want to get them done. So don't accept that, there's no point in it because the Senate won't let it get through. Make them do it anyway. Do it and fail. Let the American people see they're working for them. And let people on the other side see that, hey, my Democratic senator's voting against the Constitution. Maybe I shouldn't support him. Maybe I should register as an independent now and tell him he don't got my vote no more. That would be a great thing. So I don't think this is going to be anything big. I think it's mostly political theater. But like I said, some good could come from it. And if it does, I'll be thrilled. But like I said, I think in the end, the people that are going to really make change is going to be us, the people. And I think right now, people being unwilling to stand up and fight is actually hurting us. And they need to. Doesn't mean you don't like Donald Trump. Just because you stand up and say, hey, you haven't done this yet, you promised this, do it. That's not saying anything negative about Donald Trump. Although even though I make this video, people will say, you're a Trump hater. And, they'll leave my channel, whatever. Leave my channel. If you're in a fucking cult to where you can't even ask a representative to do what they promised, well, then you don't need to be here. This is not a place you're going to be happy. If you're not a free-thinking person that can decide for yourself and doesn't worship at the foot of any public official, then you're not going to be happy here. So go ahead and leave. This is an open invitation to leave. And you don't have to let us know. Just go quietly. Although a lot of you are not good at being quiet. But, just go. Because you're not going to be happy. I'm not saying that because I don't want you here. I love opposing opinions. I beg people to come on and disagree with me every night on my live chats. I love that. I think most people know I love that. But you're not going to be happy here, so go. If you can't ask the president to do what he said he was going to do, if you can't hold him accountable without feeling like you're some sort of traitor, like you're not being loyal to your messiah or something, well, then you probably don't belong here. But as I was saying, as far as this Second Amendment task force goes, it could be a whole bunch of nothing. It's likely a whole bunch of nothing. It looks like a whole bunch of nothing. It definitely smells like political theater, but some good could come from it. But in the end, I think most of the good is going to come from us demanding change. And right now, people don't seem to be demanding a lot. So stand up, start demanding, and start asking for something real. It is less than a pace announced that they have an... What is it? Let's talk about what this office cannot do. Hey, everybody. Yankee here. I'm sure they can't do that. That's not... People are wondering, what is this Hey, everybody. Yankee here. Space to even fill a page. They're...